Have you ever felt like you're living a lie? Like you're constantly putting on different masks depending on who you're with? Meet Alex, a 25-year-old who thought he had the perfect superpower, becoming exactly what everyone wanted him to be. But what started as his greatest strength became his most dangerous addiction. This is the story of how one brutal moment of truth changed everything, and why the person you're pretending to be might be destroying the person you really are. Alex discovered his so-called superpower at 18. He could walk into any room, read the crowd in minutes, and transform into exactly what they wanted to see. With popular kids, he became the class clown. Around academic achievers, suddenly he was studious and intellectual. Near athletes, he'd casually mention his high school football days, conveniently leaving out that he spent most games warming the bench. "You're so versatile," people would tell him. "You fit in everywhere." Alex wore these compliments like trophies, believing he was the master of social connection. But what felt like a gift was slowly becoming a prison. By 25, Alex had more personalities than a theater company. At work, he was the ambitious go-getter who stayed late and obsessed over quarterly reports. With his artsy friends, he transformed into the misunderstood creative who totally understood abstract expressionism. On dating apps, he morphed for every match. Outdoorsy for hikers, intellectual for book lovers, spontaneous for adventure seekers. His apartment looked like multiple people lived there. Business books sat next to poetry he'd never read. Unused hiking gear collected dust beside art supplies he'd bought but never touched. Before every social interaction, Alex would scroll through people's social media like he was cramming for an exam, taking mental notes on what version of himself to present. The mental gymnastics were exhausting, but Alex convinced himself it was worth it. After all, everyone loved him, didn't they? The first crack appeared during dinner with college friends. Sarah mentioned how much she loved Alex's passionate speech about environmental conservation at a recent party, but Jake looked puzzled. Environmental conservation? Dude, last week you told me climate change was totally overblown. Alex's heart raced as he laughed it off, making some joke about playing devil's advocate. But he caught the confused look between his friends. That night, he lay awake wondering if they could see through his performance. The second crack cut deeper. During a work presentation, his boss praised Alex's dedication to work-life balance, something he'd claimed was his core value during his interview. But his colleague Marcus raised an eyebrow. Work-life balance? You literally told me last week that weekends were for the weak. The room went silent. Alex felt his carefully constructed professional image starting to crumble. The moment that shattered everything happened at his friend Emma's birthday party. Alex had done his homework. Her crowd was intellectual, so he'd prepared talking points about philosophy and literature. He was holding court, discussing existentialism, when Emma's brother David approached. "That's interesting," David said, his voice carrying a sharp edge. "Because last month at the gym, you told me philosophy was pretentious garbage for people who couldn't handle reality." The group fell silent. Alex felt the blood drain from his face. David continued, "And Emma, remember when Alex told you he was passionate about social justice? Because he told my girlfriend that activism was just virtue signaling." The circle of people began shifting uncomfortably. Emma stared at Alex with confusion and disappointment. I can have different perspectives," Alex stammered weakly. Different perspectives? David's voice rose. Or are you just fake? That word, fake, hit Alex like a physical blow. In that moment, surrounded by people staring at him with pity and disgust, Alex realized his superpower was actually his kryptonite. That night, Alex sat in his car outside his apartment for 2 hours, too mortified to go inside. The word echoed in his mind, fake, fake, fake. He thought about Emma's face, someone he genuinely cared about, looking at him like he was a stranger. When he finally climbed the stairs to his apartment, Alex stood in his living room looking at the mismatched collection of interests belonging to his various personas. He felt like a fraud in his own home. Days of solitude forced Alex to confront uncomfortable truths. He couldn't answer basic questions about himself. What was his favorite movie? His core values? What did he actually want from life? He'd been so focused on becoming what others wanted that he'd never asked what he wanted. The deeper realization was even more painful. His addiction to approval had cost him the ability to approve of himself. Being authentic meant risking rejection, conflict, and loneliness. It meant potentially losing relationships built on false versions of himself. But the alternative, continuing to live as a collection of masks, felt like slow death. Alex made a decision that terrified him. He would start telling the truth, even if it hurt. The first test came when his co-worker Marcus invited him to a political discussion group. The old Alex would have researched the group's positions and adjusted accordingly. Instead, Alex took a deep breath and said, "I appreciate the invite, but honestly, I'm still figuring out what I actually believe. I've spent so long agreeing with everyone that I need time to develop my own opinions." Marcus looked surprised but nodded respectfully. "That's actually really honest. Most people just pretend to have it all figured out." The harder test came when Emma asked to meet. Alex's stomach churned as they sat in their usual coffee shop. "I need to apologize," he began. "David was right. I have been fake, and I'm sorry." Emma studied his face. "Why do you do it?" Alex had never been asked this directly. "I guess I'm terrified that if people see the real me, they won't like what they find." "But what if the real you is worth knowing?" she asked. The question hung in the air. Alex realized he'd never considered this possibility. Being authentic came with immediate consequences. Some relationships didn't survive. Friends felt deceived and chose distance. But something unexpected happened with the relationships that remained. They became deeper and more meaningful. At work, when Alex stopped pretending to love every project and focused on what genuinely interested him, his performance actually improved. Most surprisingly, Alex began to like himself. For the first time in years, he looked in the mirror and saw someone he recognized. Slowly, Alex discovered who he actually was beneath the performance. He learned he genuinely enjoyed quiet evenings reading, had strong opinions about social justice, and was naturally more introverted despite years of forcing extroversion. 6 months later, at another work event, Alex didn't rehearse a persona. He simply showed up as himself. Conversations felt natural instead of scripted. When someone disagreed with him, he didn't scramble to change positions. A colleague approached afterward. "I don't know what's changed, Alex, but you seem so much more real lately. It's refreshing." Real. The word that had once been an insult now felt like the highest compliment. Alex's journey taught him a fundamental truth. The right people will love the real you, and the wrong people's opinions don't matter. His approval addiction was based on a false premise that he needed to earn love through performance. He discovered that authentic relationships require authentic people. Only by being real could he attract people who appreciated the real Alex. Most importantly, self-approval was the only approval that truly mattered. Alex's story reminds us that we live in a world rewarding performance over authenticity. Social media encourages curated perfection. Society pressures us into predetermined molds. But the cost of constant performance is losing ourselves. You cannot build genuine confidence on external validation. Real confidence comes from self-acceptance and the courage to be disliked by some to be truly loved by others. Your authentic self, flaws, quirks, unpopular opinions and all, is worthy of love. Stop performing for applause. The standing ovation you're seeking can only come from within. If this story resonated with you and reminded you to embrace your authentic self, please hit that like button. It helps us reach others who need this message. Subscribe and click on the notification bell so you never miss our inspiring stories about real transformation. Remember, the right people will love the real you. So stop performing and start living authentically.